Picture this. You're exploring the ocean floor in a submarine, thousands of feet below the surface. Suddenly, your lights hit something impossible. Massive stone structures. Perfect geometric shapes. Roads leading nowhere. Buildings that shouldn't exist. This isn't science fiction. This is happening right now, all over our planet. For decades, mainstream archaeology has dismissed Atlantis as fantasy. Just a story Plato made up to teach philosophy. But what if they're wrong? What if the evidence has been hiding in plain sight this entire time? Today, we're diving into 4 pieces of evidence that are so compelling, so impossible to ignore, that even the biggest skeptics are starting to scratch their heads. We're talking about underwater cities that match Plato's descriptions perfectly. Ancient maps that show continents before they were supposedly discovered. Genetic mysteries that science can't explain. And structures so advanced, they make our modern engineering look like child's play. By the end of this video, you'll never look at ancient history the same way again. So buckle up, because we're about to uncover the truth about the lost civilization that wasn't supposed to exist. Let's start with something that'll blow your mind. Right now, sitting on the ocean floor, there are entire cities. Not just any cities. Cities that look exactly like what Plato described when he told us about Atlantis. Remember what Plato said? He talked about concentric circles, stone walls, harbors, canals. Advanced engineering that seemed impossible for ancient people. Well, guess what? We've found them. Multiple times. In multiple locations. First, let's talk about Yonaguni. This place is off the coast of Japan, and it's absolutely insane. Picture a massive underwater structure that looks like it was carved by giants. We're talking about perfectly straight edges, right angles, and staircases that go nowhere. The main structure is 500 feet long and 130 feet wide. That's bigger than a football field. Now, here's where it gets crazy. Marine geologist Masaaki Kimura spent over 20 years studying Yonaguni. This guy knows rocks. He knows how water erosion works. He knows what nature can and can't do. And his conclusion? This thing was definitely made by humans. Not carved by waves. Not shaped by earthquakes. Built by people. But wait, there's a problem. Yonaguni has been underwater for at least 12,000 years. That means whoever built it did so during the last ice age, when sea levels were much lower. But according to mainstream history, humans back then were supposed to be living in caves and hunting mammoths with stone spears. They weren't supposed to be building massive stone monuments with advanced engineering. The skeptics will tell you it's just a natural rock formation. But explain this. How does nature create perfect 90-degree angles? How does nature carve staircases? How does nature make tunnels that look like they were designed for human passage? And Yonaguni isn't alone. Off the coast of Cuba, researchers found another underwater city. This one's even deeper, about 2,200 feet down. Using sonar, they mapped out what looks like pyramids, roads, and buildings spread across several square miles. The structures are massive. Some are as tall as the Statue of Liberty. The Cuban government got so excited about this discovery that they brought in National Geographic. They sent down submersibles with cameras. And what they found defied explanation. Smooth, white stone blocks. Perfectly fitted together. Arranged in patterns that scream, intelligent design. Here's the kicker. This site has been underwater for over 50,000 years. That pushes back the timeline of advanced human civilization by tens of thousands of years. No wonder the discovery got buried in bureaucratic red tape and suddenly disappeared from the news. But the most mind-blowing discovery might be off the coast of Spain. Remember, Plato said Atlantis was beyond the Pillars of Hercules. That's the Strait of Gibraltar. Well, guess where researchers found concentric circular structures on the ocean floor? You got it. Right where Plato said they'd be. These structures match Plato's description so perfectly it's scary. We're talking about multiple rings of what appears to be walls or canals, arranged in perfect circles. The largest ring is over 10 miles across. The smaller rings fit inside each other like a bullseye target. Satellite imagery shows these formations clear as day. They're too perfect to be natural. Too organized to be coincidence. Too precisely located to ignore. The mainstream explanation? Geological formations. Natural salt domes. Erosion patterns. But here's the thing. Nature doesn't create perfect circles. Nature doesn't arrange multiple rings in precise geometric patterns. And nature definitely doesn't place them exactly where an ancient philosopher said they'd be. What really gets me is how quickly these discoveries get dismissed or forgotten. Scientists find something that challenges everything we thought we knew about ancient history, and suddenly it's not important anymore. It's almost like someone doesn't want us to know the truth about our past. Think about it. If these underwater cities are real, and the evidence strongly suggests they are, then everything we've been taught about human civilization is wrong. Dead wrong. We've been told that advanced civilization started maybe 6,000 years ago with Mesopotamia and Egypt. But these underwater sites prove that sophisticated, technologically advanced cultures existed tens of thousands of years earlier. They built massive stone structures that required advanced engineering, precise planning, and probably thousands of workers. And then something happened. Something catastrophic. These civilizations didn't just decline. They got wiped out so completely that they ended up on the ocean floor, forgotten by history. What do you think? Are we looking at the remains of Atlantis? Or is this just an incredible coincidence? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, because this is just the beginning of our journey into the impossible. Now let's talk about something that'll make your brain hurt in the best possible way. Ancient maps. But not just any ancient maps. Maps that show things they absolutely should not show. Maps that reveal knowledge that supposedly didn't exist until centuries or even millennia later. The most famous of these is the Piri Reis map, created in 1513 by an Ottoman admiral named Piri Reis. At first glance, it looks like any other old map. But when you look closer, it becomes absolutely mind-bending. This map shows the coastline of Antarctica. In perfect detail. The mountains, the bays, the ice-free rivers. Everything. Here's the problem. Antarctica wasn't officially discovered until 1820. That's over 300 years after this map was drawn. But wait, it gets crazier. The map doesn't just show Antarctica. It shows Antarctica without ice. The coastline underneath the ice sheet. Rivers flowing into the ocean. Mountain ranges in their exact positions. This is stuff we only confirmed with modern seismic equipment and satellite imagery in the 1950s. How is this possible? The Antarctic ice sheet has been there for millions of years, right? Well, actually, no. Scientists now believe that parts of Antarctica were ice-free as recently as 6,000 years ago. But even that doesn't solve our problem, because in 6,000 years ago, humans supposedly didn't have the technology to accurately map entire continents. Piri Reis himself admitted he didn't create this map from scratch. In the notes written on the map, he says he compiled it from over 20 different source maps. Some of these sources, he claims, dated back to the time of Alexander the Great. Others were even older. Think about what this means. Someone, thousands of years ago, had accurate geographical knowledge of Antarctica. Not only did they know it existed, but they knew what it looked like under the ice. They had the ability to map it precisely. And they had the means to preserve and pass down this information across centuries. But the Piri Reis map isn't alone. There's the Orontius Phineas map from 1532, which also shows Antarctica ice-free and in remarkable detail. The Philippe Boitch map from 1754 shows Antarctica as two separate landmasses, connected by a narrow strip of land. We didn't confirm this was accurate until the 1950s, when seismic surveys revealed that Antarctica is indeed two separate continents underneath the ice. These aren't lucky guesses. These are precise, accurate representations of geographical features that should have been impossible to map with ancient technology. And it's not just Antarctica. The Haji Ahmed map from 1559 shows the Pacific coast of North America with stunning accuracy, including the correct latitude and longitude coordinates. This was drawn decades before European explorers had properly mapped that coastline. The Zeno map from 1380 shows Greenland ice-free, with rivers and detailed interior features. Today, Greenland is covered by an ice sheet up to 2 miles thick. But core samples suggest that parts of it were indeed ice-free about 10,000 years ago. Here's where it connects to Atlantis. Plato said the Atlanteans were master navigators who had mapped the entire world. He described them as having detailed knowledge of distant lands and the ability to travel anywhere on the planet. If Atlantis existed, and if they had advanced maritime technology, then these ancient source maps could be their legacy. But mainstream historians have a different explanation. They claim these maps are just imaginative reconstructions based on ancient Greek and Roman geographical theories. They say cartographers were just filling in blank spaces with educated guesses that happened to be correct. Really? Lucky guesses that accurately show the sub-ice topography of Antarctica? Coincidental drawings that perfectly match satellite imagery taken 400 years later? That's not educated guessing. That's impossible without direct observation or advanced technology. Charles Hapgood, a professor at Keene State College, spent decades studying these anomalous maps. His conclusion was revolutionary. These maps prove the existence of an advanced, unknown civilization that achieved a worldwide maritime civilization at least 10,000 years ago. Hapgood's research was so compelling that it caught the attention of Albert Einstein. Yes, that Einstein. The famous physicist wrote the foreword to Hapgood's book and endorsed his theory. Einstein believed these maps were evidence of a lost civilization with advanced geographical knowledge. But here's what really gets me. The level of accuracy in these maps requires more than just sailing around and drawing coastlines. It requires mathematical precision, understanding of longitude and latitude, and advanced surveying techniques. It requires a coordinated global effort to map the entire planet systematically. The ancient source maps these cartographers used weren't just random drawings. They were part of a comprehensive geographical database that spanned the globe. Someone long ago had undertaken the massive project of mapping the entire Earth with scientific precision. Who could have done this? What civilization had the technology, the resources, and the motivation to map the whole world? According to Plato, it was the Atlanteans. They were the master navigators, the advanced civilization that had conquered lands across the globe. Think about the implications. If these maps are evidence of Atlantean knowledge, then Atlantis wasn't just a single island or city. It was a global maritime empire with the ability to navigate and map the entire planet. They had technology that we're only now beginning to understand. The evidence is sitting right there in libraries and museums around the world. Ancient maps that show impossible knowledge. Geographical details that shouldn't exist. Precision that defies historical timelines. What's your take on this? Are these maps proof of ancient advanced technology, or just incredible coincidences? Let me know in the comments, because we're about to dive into evidence that's even more mind-blowing. Get ready for this one, because we're about to enter territory that makes scientists really uncomfortable. We're talking about genetics, DNA, and bloodlines that trace back to something that mainstream science says never existed. Here's the thing about DNA. It doesn't lie. It's like a history book written in our cells, telling the story of where we came from and who our ancestors were. And when scientists started mapping human genetics across the globe, they found something absolutely bizarre. There are genetic markers that appear in populations all over the world, in places that should have had zero contact with each other. We're talking about identical genetic sequences showing up in Native Americans, Europeans, Africans, Pacific Islanders, and Asian populations. These aren't just similar traits. These are exact matches. According to mainstream science, these populations were isolated from each other for tens of thousands of years. They developed separately, evolved independently, and didn't interact until very recent history. So how do they share identical genetic markers? The official explanation is something called convergent evolution. The idea that separate populations develop the same traits by coincidence. But here's the problem. The odds of identical genetic sequences developing independently in multiple isolated populations are astronomically small. We're talking about mathematical impossibility. But it gets weirder. There's a specific genetic marker called haplogroup X that appears in very specific places. The Mediterranean, some Native American tribes, and the Basque people of Spain. This marker is ancient, dating back at least 15,000 years. But here's the kicker. It appears nowhere else. Not in Asia. Not in the populations that supposedly migrated across the Bering Land Bridge to reach the Americas. This suggests that there was direct contact between the Mediterranean and the Americas long before Columbus. Someone was crossing the Atlantic 15,000 years ago, mixing populations and leaving genetic evidence that we can still detect today. The Basque people are particularly interesting. They're a genetic anomaly. Their language is unlike any other language on Earth. It's completely isolated, with no known relatives. Their blood types show unusual frequencies of Rh-negative blood. And their genetic markers suggest they've been isolated in their region for over 20,000 years. But here's what's really strange. The Basques have oral traditions that speak of their ancestors coming from a great island that sank beneath the waves. They describe this island as a place of advanced civilization, master builders, and great navigators. Sound familiar? Even more intriguing, the Basque region is right next to the Strait of Gibraltar, Plato's Pillars of Hercules, the exact location where he placed Atlantis. Then there's the mystery of Rh-negative blood. About 15% of the global population has this blood type, but it's not evenly distributed. It's heavily concentrated in certain populations. The Basques, 35%, Celtic populations in Ireland and Scotland, 25%, and some Berber tribes in North Africa, 30%. Here's the genetic puzzle. Rh-negative blood doesn't follow normal evolutionary patterns. It doesn't provide any survival advantage. In fact, it causes problems during pregnancy that should have eliminated it from the gene pool long ago. Yet it persists in these specific populations at high frequencies. Some geneticists theorize that Rh-negative blood represents an older human lineage, possibly predating modern Homo sapiens. If that's true, then these populations carrying high frequencies of Rh-negative blood might be descendants of a more ancient, possibly more advanced human civilization. The mitochondrial DNA tells an even stranger story. Mitochondrial DNA is passed down through the mother's line and mutates at a predictable rate, making it perfect for tracing human migration patterns. When scientists mapped global mitochondrial DNA, they found something impossible. Certain lineages that appear in multiple continents simultaneously, with no clear migration path between them. One particular mitochondrial haplogroup, called U, shows up in Ice Age Europe, ancient North Africa, and pre-Columbian America. The timeline suggests these populations should have been completely isolated from each other, yet they share recent common maternal ancestors. The only explanation that makes sense is that there was an advanced maritime civilization capable of global travel during the Ice Age. A civilization that established colonies or trading posts across multiple continents, facilitating genetic exchange between populations that mainstream science says never met. Plato described the Atlanteans as master navigators who had established colonies beyond the Pillars of Hercules, and in the opposite continent. If Atlantis was real, and if they were indeed a global maritime power, then the genetic evidence fits perfectly. But there's another piece of this puzzle that's even more intriguing. The global flood myths. Every major civilization on Earth has stories of a great flood that destroyed an advanced civilization. The similarities between these stories are remarkable, despite the fact that these cultures supposedly developed independently. The Hindu Puranas speak of advanced civilizations destroyed by floods. Native American tribes across both continents have flood stories. Ancient Mesopotamian texts describe the same catastrophe. Greek, Norse, Celtic, African, and Pacific Islander cultures all have nearly identical flood narratives. What if these aren't just myths? What if they're genetic memories, passed down through the survivors of a real global catastrophe? The genetic evidence suggests that there was indeed a population bottleneck, a dramatic reduction in human numbers, around 12,000 years ago, right around the time Plato said Atlantis was destroyed. The survivors of this catastrophe would have scattered across the globe, carrying with them fragments of their advanced civilization's knowledge and, more importantly, their DNA. Over thousands of years, these genetic markers would have spread through local populations, creating the puzzling patterns we see today. Modern genetic research is revealing connections between ancient populations that shouldn't exist according to conventional history. We're finding evidence of global contact, advanced navigation, and sophisticated civilizations during time periods when humans were supposedly living in primitive hunter-gatherer societies. The DNA doesn't lie. It's showing us that our ancestors were far more connected, far more advanced, and far more capable than we've been told. The genetic evidence for an ancient global civilization isn't just compelling, it's undeniable. What do you think about this genetic evidence? Are we looking at proof that Atlantis was real, or is there another explanation for these impossible genetic connections? Share your thoughts below, because our final chapter is going to tie everything together in a way that'll change how you see ancient history forever. Now we're getting to the really mind-bending stuff. We're talking about ancient technology that shouldn't exist. Artifacts and achievements that are so advanced, so precisely engineered, that they challenge everything we think we know about human development. Let's start with something that'll make your head spin. The Antikythera mechanism. This thing was found in a shipwreck off the Greek coast in 1901, and it took scientists over a century to figure out what it actually was. When they finally decoded it, they called it the world's first analog computer. This device, built around 100 BC, could predict the positions of the sun, moon, and planets for decades into the future. It had over 30 bronze gears, precisely calibrated to track multiple astronomical cycles simultaneously. The level of engineering precision is so advanced that we didn't see anything like it again until clockmakers in the 18th century. But here's the kicker. This wasn't some one-off invention. The complexity and sophistication of the Antikythera mechanism suggests it was part of an established tradition of advanced mechanical engineering. You don't just randomly stumble upon this level of technology. This represents generations of accumulated knowledge and refinement. The ancient Greeks supposedly didn't have the tools, the metallurgy, or the mathematical knowledge to create something like this. Yet there it is, sitting in museums, defying our understanding of ancient capabilities. But that's just the beginning. Let's talk about precision stone cutting that makes modern engineers jealous. At Pumapunku in Bolivia, you'll find stone blocks that are cut with such precision that you can't fit a human hair between the joints. These aren't rough stone walls. These are machine-perfect cuts with angles accurate to a fraction of a degree. The blocks weigh up to 130 tons each and are made of andesite and granite, some of the hardest stones on Earth. They're cut with perfect right angles, smooth surfaces, and complex interlocking patterns. Some blocks have perfectly round holes drilled through them, as if by industrial machinery. Here's the problem. The civilization that built Pumapunku supposedly didn't have metal tools, let alone precision cutting equipment. They didn't have the wheel. They didn't have draft animals. Yet somehow they quarried, cut, transported, and precisely fitted these massive stone blocks with tolerances that would challenge modern construction equipment. The same impossible precision shows up at other ancient sites around the world. The Great Pyramid of Giza is aligned to true north with an accuracy of 3/60th of a degree. The base is level to within just 2.1 centimeters across the entire 13-acre foundation. The whole structure was built with mathematical precision that incorporates pi, the golden ratio, and the dimensions of the Earth. Ancient Egyptian engineers somehow achieved this level of precision using copper tools and wooden ramps. Really? Try cutting granite with a copper chisel sometime and see how that works out for you. At Sacsayhuaman in Peru, massive polygonal stones weighing hundreds of tons are fitted together so perfectly that you can't slide a piece of paper between them. These aren't rectangular blocks. They're complex, irregular shapes that fit together like a three-dimensional jigsaw puzzle. Each stone required precise calculation of its unique shape and its relationship to all the surrounding stones. The engineering complexity is staggering. Modern architects have tried to recreate these techniques and failed. Even with computer modeling and precision cutting equipment, we can't achieve the same level of accuracy and complexity. But perhaps the most mind-blowing ancient technology is the Baghdad battery. Found in Iraq and dating back over 2,000 years, this device consists of a clay jar containing a copper cylinder and an iron rod. When filled with an acidic solution like vinegar or wine, it produces about 1.1 volts of electricity. Mainstream archaeologists dismiss it as a coincidence, claiming it was just a storage vessel. But electrical engineers who've studied it say it's clearly designed to generate electricity. The components are too precisely arranged, and the voltage output is too consistent to be accidental. If the Baghdad battery is real, and the evidence strongly suggests it is, then ancient civilizations had knowledge of electricity over 2,000 years before it was supposedly discovered. What were they using it for? Electroplating? Lighting? Communication? We find similar technological anomalies all over the ancient world. The Damascus steel of medieval times had a molecular structure that we couldn't replicate until the 20th century. Ancient Roman concrete is still stronger than modern concrete and actually gets stronger underwater. The Greek fire used by the Byzantine Empire was an incendiary weapon so advanced that we still don't know exactly how it worked. But here's what really gets me. These technologies don't appear gradually, like you'd expect from normal human development. They show up suddenly, fully formed, as if someone already knew exactly how to make them work. It's almost like these ancient civilizations inherited their knowledge from somewhere else. From some earlier, more advanced civilization that had already figured out these technologies and passed them down. Enter the Atlantis connection. Plato described the Atlanteans as having advanced technology that surpassed anything in the ancient world. He talked about their superior metallurgy, their advanced engineering, and their sophisticated understanding of natural forces. If Atlantis was real, and if they possessed advanced technology, then these scattered examples of impossible ancient achievements start to make sense. They're not random breakthroughs, they're fragments of Atlantean knowledge, preserved and passed down through the survivors of the Great Catastrophe. Think about it. What would happen if our modern civilization suddenly collapsed? Most of our technology would be lost within a generation or two. But fragments might survive. A few solar panels here, some stainless steel there, maybe a computer or two that archaeologists 10,000 years from now would find impossible to explain. That's exactly what we're seeing in the archaeological record. Scattered examples of advanced technology that don't fit the official timeline. Precision engineering that surpasses anything we'd expect from ancient civilizations. Knowledge that appears to come from nowhere and then disappears again. The evidence is overwhelming. Ancient humans had access to knowledge and technology that we're only now beginning to understand. Whether that knowledge came from Atlantis, from extraterrestrial contact, or from some other advanced civilization, one thing is clear. Our ancestors were far more capable than we've been told. The official story of human development. The idea that we gradually progressed from primitive hunter-gatherers to modern civilization is falling apart under the weight of evidence. We're discovering that advanced technology and sophisticated knowledge existed in the ancient world, was lost in some catastrophe, and then slowly rediscovered over thousands of years. What do you think? Is this evidence of Atlantean technology, or is there another explanation for these impossible ancient achievements? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because the truth about our past is far stranger than we ever imagined. So there you have it. 4 pieces of evidence that mainstream archaeology can't explain away. Underwater cities that match Plato's descriptions perfectly. Ancient maps showing impossible knowledge. Genetic markers that reveal global connections thousands of years before they should have existed. And technology that defies everything we thought we knew about ancient capabilities. Each piece of evidence is compelling on its own. But when you put them all together, they paint a picture that's impossible to ignore. We're not looking at random coincidences or wishful thinking. We're looking at consistent, repeatable evidence that points to the same conclusion. An advanced civilization existed in the distant past and was destroyed in a global catastrophe. Whether you want to call it Atlantis, or give it another name, the evidence is clear. Our ancestors achieved levels of sophistication that we're only now beginning to appreciate. They built cities that ended up on the ocean floor. They created maps with knowledge that took us centuries to rediscover. They left genetic signatures that prove global contact in the ancient world. And they developed technologies that we're still trying to understand. The real question isn't whether this advanced civilization existed. The evidence proves it did. The real question is why this knowledge has been ignored, dismissed, or actively suppressed by mainstream academia. Maybe it's because accepting this evidence means rewriting history books. Maybe it's because it challenges the comfortable narrative of human progress. Or maybe it's because the truth about our past is more incredible than any of us are ready to accept. But the evidence is out there, and it's growing stronger every day. New discoveries are being made. New technologies are allowing us to explore places that were previously inaccessible. And slowly but surely, the truth about our ancient past is emerging. If you found this video as mind-blowing as I did while researching it, smash that like button and let me know in the comments which piece of evidence convinced you the most. Was it the underwater cities? The impossible maps? The genetic connections? Or the advanced technology? And if you're hungry for more truth about our hidden history, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell, because we're just scratching the surface. There are more mysteries, more evidence, and more incredible discoveries waiting to be explored. Don't let them keep this information buried. Share this video with anyone who's ready to question what they've been told about the past. Because the truth about human civilization is far more incredible than the official story. Until next time, keep questioning everything. The truth is out there. You just have to be brave enough to look for it.